When Dave Gordon called me and he said, "We want to induct you into the legends of speaking," my first question was how? How can that be? How can a person who was born in a housing project, flunked second grade, was kicked out of the first high school he attended, dropped out of college in his freshman year, how can he be inducted to such an exclusive group? And I wanted an answer to that how question. And I kept thinking about it, and then it dawned on me, Bob, you're the how. You are the how. You're the people. You're the reason I'm here today. Because I went back to what happened to me when I first joined this organization, and I went to my first convention in 1989, and I went to the first convention, and I saw a guy named Joe Charbonneau. Remember Joe? Yep. And Joe Charbonneau said, make $350 a week, you'll make 50 contacts, and you get 2.5 bookings. I didn't know any better, right, Elizabeth? I just do what people tell me to do, so I was good advice. Then I went to another session, and Dave Gordon spoke, and he said, speak to associations. Wow, that's pretty good. So if I take the advice that Joe gave me, and then I take the advice that Dave gave me, then I could really do some business, because if I spoke to associations, then I'd meet other people and I could build my business. And then another guy spoke at the same convention, Tom Winninger. And Tom Winninger says, when you speak at an association, before you leave, you ask everyone to take out their business cards, and you just say, write info on the back. And if they write info on the back, you give them a call. I averaged about 10 info cards per meeting. Within the first year, I was so fortunate, because I worked hard. I did what these three people said to do, and I ended up with over 75 bookings in my first year. And so I thought, wow, this is great. And I was so busy and so booked that I didn't have time to get on the phone and do the formula anymore, so I hired my daughter, Ann Yoho, to take over my marketing. And the following year, she billed me 150 dates. And I said, if you do it again, I'm going to fire you. It was great, but it wasn't so great because I was never home. I think one time I came home and my dog bit me because it forgot who I was. But we live in a profession where we answer the how for most people. You see, the motivational, and I hate to use the term, most of us hate to use the term, but that's what we do. We motivate people to be something more than what they are. And the first guy that ever did that to me was a guy named Earl Nightingale. We'll remember. How many of you in this room were influenced by Earl? Isn't it amazing? Earl Nightingale. You see, with that education that I gave you, the background I gave you, the only job I could get after I got dropping out of college was a finance collector for Aetna Finance Company. Well, I went back into the housing project where I was born, knocking on doors, trying to get people to pay their bills. And I'll never forget, I knocked on the guy's door once. He said, come on in. I figured he was going to pay me in the living room. He owed me $5. He said, come on in the kitchen. I said, fine. I went in the kitchen. He goes behind the counter, opens the drawer, takes out a butcher knife this big, slaps it on the counter and says, now, what are we here for? I said, well, I'm just here to tell you, I'm going to pay you $5 this month, but next month, it's your turn. I ran out of that house. Next morning, shows you how God works, you know? Next morning, I'm driving to work in my little old black Volkswagen Beetle. Now, I had one of the originals. Windshield wipers going back and forth. Cold, rainy day in New Orleans. Floorboards had rotted out of my car. I was trying to keep my pants from getting wet. Windshield wipers going back and forth. I had a jerry-rigged radio under the dashboard. That means you can't afford the real radio. And there came the booming voice of Earl Nightingale. And he said, you can have, be, or do anything you want in life. I said, whoa, God's talking to me this morning, because you could hear his voice. The night before, I have a knife pulled on me. This day, Nightingale comes on and tells me what I can do. I listened to him. He said, believe in yourself, focus on what it is you want, get the knowledge you need, put a plan together, and then follow through with action. Wow, simple steps. I wrote them down. I pulled the car over, wrote it down. And then I started doing those things. By the time I was 30 years old, I owned my own advertising agency because I had focused on what I wanted to do. We became the second largest agency in the state of Kentucky. I ran into Elizabeth Jeffries after 20 years. I was tired of being in the advertising agency business, and I wanted to take another step and do something else. And I'd heard her, and she's awesome. And so I said, you know, I'd like to do that. She said three things: Bill McGrain, Kentucky Speakers Association, and Kentucky Speakers Association and the National Speakers Association. Well, immediately I did all three things, and here I am today. Here I am today. So when I asked the question, how, the answer came to me, it's because of you. Each of you as an individual and you as an organization are the reason I'm up here today. Bob said it beautifully. Where would we be, Bob, if we hadn't met these wonderful people? Where would we be if we hadn't been inspired and motivated and talked to by these wonderful people, individually and as a group? So the next time you ask yourself the question, how or why do I do what I do? Just think of the how. How many people have you influenced in your life? How many people have you influenced that you don't even know you influenced? And how many more, I don't care how old we are, how many more people are there left for us to influence? Thank you so much for this tremendous honor. I love you guys, I really do. And I'll be so honored to have this thing hanging on my wall where I can stare at it every day. Thank you. Thank you.